In the early days of sitcoms, there was one sound that ruled them all.
Well, now you know how I feel.
The laugh track. Today, shows that feature a live studio audience or laugh track are becoming far and few between. But with the rise of streaming and the number of shows getting a second life, such as Seinfeld and Friends, the audience can still be there with you in your living room. I was recently doing some binge watching of Seinfeld when I came across a fact that the audience was so ecstatic during the filming of some scenes with Kramer busting through the door that they were told to tone it down. That's when it really hit me. Some of these shows are actually recorded live, in front of an audience of real people. And this sent me down a rabbit hole trying to find out how these live studio audiences actually work. So in this video, we're going to take a dive into the history, the workings of, and the death of live studio audiences. But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to Film Stack so you don't miss out on our latest videos. We experienced some awesome growth last year and have big plans for this channel going forward and hope to take all of you along for the ride. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a like for the YouTube algorithm. It doesn't take much, but it helps the channel out a lot. With that out of the way, cue the intro. Before everyone had a TV in their living room, live theater and the cinema was a much more common way of getting your entertainment. And the beauty of live theater is that the audience and the actors fed off of each other. Actors knew when to take a pause based on audience's reactions, and based on an audience's reaction, actors sometimes needed to dig deep to get the most out of their performances. In live theater, audience members also fed off of each other. It's similar to going to a movie theater. Some of my favorite movie theater experiences have been comedies that were so much funnier in theaters because of all the people around me laughing their hearts out. So when TVs began appearing in the living room, broadcasters tried to replicate this sense of community and interaction by simply broadcasting live plays. But there was something missing. It was difficult to get long-running stories or episodes to work in the theater format. The next evolution was the multi-camera TV show. A multi-camera show is one where, as the title suggests, makes use of multiple cameras at once. Think of shows like Seinfeld, Friends, and The Big Bang Theory, as opposed to a single-camera TV show. Think of shows like The Office or Parks and Recreation. These types of multi-camera shows are often recorded in front of a live audience, which allows the actors to feed off of the energy of the crowd, but also allows the audience to act as almost another character. It allows TV shows to emulate that sense of community and interaction that was previously exclusive to live theater and cinema. The common belief is that the first multi-camera sitcom was I Love Lucy, although there were shows that used this format before, like the Amos and Andy show. But the popularity of I Love Lucy cemented this format into the sitcom genre, where it became used extensively. Although nowadays, when we think of multi-camera TV shows recorded in front of a live audience, we think of the sitcom or comedy genre, in the early days there were also dramas recorded in this format. But for reasons similar to why everyone stays quiet during a movie unless it's a comedy, most genres except comedy moved to the single camera setup. But what the heck is a live audience in TV and how does it work? Well, a live audience is exactly what the name entails. It's a live audience of viewers watching some recording of a TV show or program that can oftentimes be heard in the final output. There are many different genres of television that use live audiences. From late night shows to stand-up comedy to game shows, live audiences appear in many different places. But the genre we care about most in this video is the sitcom. A multi-camera setup in sitcoms generally uses 3 to 4 cameras that are pointed at a pre-built set that lives on a soundstage. And a soundstage is basically a huge room that allows for multiple sets to be built inside of it, with room for stands where the live audience will sit to watch the recording of the TV show. Having multiple cameras recording the actor simultaneously is very convenient because it allows the directors to pick the angles that work best for the scene, but also allows for more seamless stitching of scenes between different takes. Most sitcoms recorded this way have 1 or 2 primary sets, with secondary sets being built when needed. These sets are placed side by side in one long row in front of the audience. The audience is usually seated in front of the primary sets, with the secondary sets being off to the side. It is common that when the show requires a secondary set to be used, the audience won't watch the actors themselves, but instead will watch what is being recorded on a big monitor. This is similar to how offsite scenes are also shown to the audience. To get a more genuine reaction, TV shows will pre-record any scenes that are shot at an offsite location beforehand and play them back on the screen to capture the audience's real reactions. A typical 30-minute sitcom will take about 3 to 5 hours to record. But how in the hell does an audience stay so energetic and giddy for that long? It all comes down to how the audience is treated and hyped up before the recording begins. The recording of these shows is often similar to a full-blown event. Before it begins, there is a process that will hype up the crowd and make them more relaxed and giggly. From being shown previous episodes, to loud and energetic music being played, to snacks being given out, to stand-up comedians doing a bit and bantering with the crowd, the entire atmosphere is curated to get the best reaction from the crowd. Once the recording begins, the crowd will basically find anything funny or shocking. Having a live audience there while you're recording an episode of a TV show is very helpful for the scriptwriters, actors, and directors. If the scene isn't getting the reaction they hoped for, they can rewrite lines, change direction, or change delivery to make the scene better. It's almost like showing a preview of an episode and recording it at the same time. You get to kill two birds with one stone and have more confidence in the content being recorded. But what about episodes with a story that the producers and director don't want being leaked to the general public before it premieres? In these cases, those scenes can be recorded in front of just the staff or family members, but are oftentimes recorded without any audience, and a pre-recorded laugh track is added in post-production. And this gives me the perfect segue to talk about laugh tracks and the almighty laugh box. The YouTube channel Cheddar has a really great video about live studio audiences that goes really deep into the laugh box and all of its secrets. There's also a really great podcast called 99% Invisible, which also has an episode all about the laugh box. The links for both will be down below in the description. But in general, it was a machine that through time evolved to look somewhat like a typewriter, where every key was a different laugh. These keys would allow the sound engineers to produce an artificial laughter that matched the tone of the scene, without requiring an actual live audience. As time went on, the laugh box and pre-recorded laugh tracks became more and more popular because of cost and simplicity reasons, but they never ended up fully replacing a live studio audience. So if you're interested in learning more about the laugh box, and I recommend you do because it has a very interesting and secretive history, make sure to check out the links in the description. Before the world went into lockdown and social distancing became part of our daily vocabulary, we were already seeing a huge decline in the number of TV shows that featured a live studio audience. The last really popular one was The Big Bang Theory, which went off the air in 2019. Most modern comedies are recorded with a single camera setup and no longer feature a laugh track. Some of the most influential sitcoms of recent times are recorded this way. Think of The Office, Parks and Recreation, Malcolm in the Middle, 30 Rock, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and many, many more. But why? Why did the laugh track fall out of favor? Well, there isn't one main reason, and I'm sure there will be shows in the future that will bring it back for vintage or homage purposes. But from doing some research, I could find three main reasons that the laugh track basically disappeared. The first reason being that when using a live audience, the jokes and episodes lend themselves to a very punchline type of humor. A joke is queued up, then the punchline is delivered, and the audience laughs while there is a pause. Watch any show that uses a laugh track with the actual laughing muted, and it's pretty awkward. There are long pauses between sentences where you know the audience should be laughing, and the jokes don't seem to hit as hard as they did with the audience. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, there was a rise of what is now coined as cringe humor. If anyone has watched The Office, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These types of jokes don't require any awkward pauses and also allow for the usually empty space left for laugh tracks to be filled with more content. Having more time to fill with content allows for more developed stories, more environmental and background humor, and in general has become the norm these days. The second reason is that there was a study that put Seinfeld up against The Simpsons, and the results came back that having a laugh track didn't really affect what viewers perceived as funny. Gone were the fears of the olden days where studios didn't know if TV sitcoms could survive and thrive without a laugh track. This might not have been a huge turning point, but it definitely provided validation that the laugh track was not required. And finally, the third reason is that media evolves. Media is often a creative outlet where creators try to push the boundaries and limits. When almost every show was using a laugh track, it was inevitable that some shows would pop up and go against the norm. And over time, these shows would learn how to use this new format to their advantage. These new types of shows like Malcolm in the Middle, 30 Rock, and many, many more, some of which I've already mentioned, were a fresh new take on the sitcom. They allowed for more flexibility and could have a unique identity of their own. When I think of The Office, it's completely different than when I think of Malcolm in the Middle or a Brooklyn Nine-Nine. The cinematography, the humor, the number of locations that this format allowed was like a fresh breath of air compared to the now cliche New York apartment. Most multi-camera TV shows have a certain feel to them that is hard to break away from because of the limitations of the format. And over time, there wasn't much more you could do with the format to keep it fresh for audiences. Even newer shows like How I Met Your Mother opted to use pre-recorded laugh tracks because they wanted to make use of multiple locations and not have the limitations that previous shows had. This show is actually known as a hybrid show, where the laugh track is used sometimes, but not always, and it uses different styles of camera setup to get the story across. TV shows with a laugh track will always have a place in people's heart as being an all-American creation that represented a certain point in time. When I think of them, I think of the early 90s, and they definitely make me feel some nostalgia. And I'm happy how TV has evolved and hopefully continues to evolve as time goes on. But as for the laugh track, it seems like it's now part of TV show history that will be a sign of the times and will most likely come up from time to time for novelty purposes. Thanks for watching. I had a lot of fun doing research for this video. It was only originally going to be about how live studio audiences work, but it ended up being kind of a short memoir of the history, the workings of, and the death of the format. This topic was really interesting to me, and if you're also interested, I'm going to include some links below that you can get more information, and trust me, they're 100% worth reading and diving deep on. If you haven't subscribed to FilmStack, and I know most of you haven't, make sure to subscribe, and if you like this video, hit that like button. It helps the channel out a lot, and it doesn't take much. Until next time, have a good one.